All right, hello folks, welcome back to another session of the Summer Skills Lab. Today's session is going to be a little special. Today's topic is verbal and non-verbal communication, confidence building, and group discussions. So, as you can see in the images, you can't be bad at communication if you never communicate at all. But we all know that does not work in the real world. And it is very crucial for us to learn how to communicate effectively, and that is why this session. Now, something exciting about this session is that most of us think that communication happens just verbally, just through words, either written or spoken. But 90% of communication is non-verbal. What is non-verbal communication? We'll dive into that later. But for now, let's understand what exactly is communication. So, when you talk about communication, communication is simply the process of sharing your ideas, your feelings, your emotions, and information with other people. And there can be many types of communication. As I was telling you, first and the foremost is the verbal communication. Now, this could be spoken as well as written. And the second one, the second primary one, is the non-verbal communication, where we talk about body language, where we talk about tone, where we talk about expressions, right? And of course, you could talk about written communication, communication through writing, letters, essay, all of those things, and visual communication like this presentation. Now, coming back to the previous slide, how important is good communication? Very important. That's all we know, right? We all know that. Why very important? Because it serves you in multiple areas of your life. This is not just important for college, this is also important for job opportunities, also important if you're building a business or running an organization, also important if you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. And essentially, the better you communicate, the better the outcomes are. So it could be for an interview, it could be your aspiration to become the prime minister of the country. Effective communicators win all the games, right? Now we have looked at types of communications. What's most important in today's session is how do you improve your communication skills? How do you improve your verbal communication? How do you improve your non-verbal communication? How do you improve your written communication is not the part of our agenda today, but that is also crucial. So let's start, let's get going and look at how can we improve our verbal communication. Let's talk about the basics of verbal communication. Now, when we talk about effective verbal communication, the first and the foremost important thing is clarity. As long as you are clear in communicating what you are saying, it's more or less okay if we can, be a little plus minus in other domains. So, for that, we need to use simple language, correct language. You do not have to be like Mr. Shashi Tharoor and use fancy vocabulary and a mellifluous tone. You simply can express yourself effectively by just using simple but correct language. Correct being the key word here. If you're not using correct language, it gives an impression that you're not well versed with the language, right? So, simple and correct language is the first foundation of effective verbal communication, है ना? जैसा हम कहते हैं हिंदी में कि बात समझ में आनी चाहिए. अब आप बोलो उसको कैसे भी, वो आपके ऊपर है. The second thing is tone. Now, tone plays a very crucial role in expressing how you are communicating, how you want the listener to perceive your communication. Now, there could be multiple ways of saying a same sentence, right? One could be a friendly, respectful, confident tone, like we are discussing right now, and one could be a very aggressive and very, condescending and aggressive tone like this. And you don't want to listen like this, right? You don't want to listen to a person who talks like that, who sort of shouts at you, who sort of talks in a very high pitch. So maintaining the correct tone is very important. We'll also talk about tone modulation, voice modulation, but that is more of a part of non-verbal communication. So we'll come to that later. The next aspect is, of course, vocabulary. Now, when I say vocabulary, as I already said, your vocabulary does not necessarily has to be very fancy, but it has to be accurate. It has to be to the point. By to the point, I mean that we should not be using filler words, right? So when I am communicating with you, I am not using words like okay, you must have seen cricketers taking interviews after the man of the match. And many of the times they say, you know, this happened, and then, you know, we did this, and then, you know, the team performed well. This, you know, is a filler word which is usually taught to cricketers so that they don't get stuck. But an effective communicator does not use the word you know. You know is just an example I'm giving you, but there are multiple filler words like oh, yeah. You must have seen people, you know, using the word yeah way too often. That's sort of like a slang and a filler word. You just say yeah. That does not sound very professional unless you're talking with your friends. In you, if when you are in a professional setting, it's important that you maintain a professional vocabulary. Do not use slang words which you use in casual, informal conversations. Obviously, do not use cuss words. I think that goes without saying. So, yes, vocabulary is important to a great extent. And the most underrated and ignored aspect of verbal communication is listening. You have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, right? That is because active listening is a part of good communication. As much as expressing your thoughts, it's equally important that you listen to the person who's talking to you. You listen to the person who's listening to you. And that is how you understand what their thoughts are, what their perspectives are, rather than just giving a monologue, just giving a pravachan, which the other person might not even be interested in listening to, right? So, yes, listening is equally important. So, these are some things which we look at when we talk about effective verbal communication, expressing your thoughts verbally in a efficient manner. So, what's important is that you think before you speak, and you speak clearly and purposefully. It's very important that when you get stuck, take a meaningful pause, right? So, when I take a pause, like this, I'm not sounding nervous. I'm just thinking, I'm contemplating so that I speak clearly. But if I rush into a sentence or rush into my thoughts, then I would sound nervous. You know, clarity, yes, you should speak with clarity, and you should have a good tone, and you know, it is important to have good vocabulary. This does not sound very clear. This does not sound very purposeful. Now, the pauses, you notice the difference between my pauses before and my pauses now. They are intentional, they are purposeful, they are well thought out, and they give me space to structure my thoughts and express my thoughts more clearly. Right? Okay, let's move on and look at the other aspects of effective verbal communication. Now we know how to, you know, sort of present our thoughts, but it's important that the structure of the content which you are presenting is also organized, it's also relevant. If you are talking in a very fancy manner but you're talking something which is not even relevant, the reader is not, or the listener is not that interested in you, right? So if you are, let's say, supposed to give a speech on India's GDP, but on the other hand you're talking about climate change. Sure, you might be an expert in climate change, but the listeners do not want to listen about climate change. They want you to express your thoughts about India's economy. So it has to be relevant, it has to be well organized, it has to be structured. And then comes the delivery, which is the voice modulation, which is the speed of your sentences, which is the pauses which we were just talking about. What do we mean by voice modulation? Voice modulation is simply changing the tone, changing the tonality, changing the modularity of your voice so that you don't sound dull, so that you don't sound monotonous, so that you don't sound boring. That is what voice modulation is. Now, this could mean increasing the speed of your sentences midway and then slowing down for emphasis. This is part of voice modulation. Speed. Another part of voice modulation is your tonality. I could be talking in a very high pitch and a very high tone to express my enthusiasm, but I could be talking in a very mellow, in a very deep, in a very somber tone if I am expressing something which is serious, right? Or something which is mysterious. So, this is how you change your voice modulation, and this is how you don't let dullness come into your speech. See, if I were to read a sentence in a monotonous tone, let's read the sentence on the screen. Content, is it relevant and well organized? On the other hand, if I read it with voice modulation, content, is it relevant and well organized? So you see the difference. Now, some people might call it shoshabazi, some people might call it dramebazi, some people might call it gimmicky, but it's not. It catches the attention of the listener, and the most effective listeners, as well as the most effective speakers, are the ones who have this ability of voice modulation, who have this ability of changing the speed of their sentence midway, and who have the ability of taking the right pauses. You look at any good speaker, you look at Steve Jobs, how he presents, the how he used to present rather, his presentations when he used to launch a new product. Or you look at our prime minister, so how emphatically when he says mere bhaiyon behno, that captures the attention, right? So he talks in that distinctive, loud, high pitched tone and voice modulation when he wants to express emphasis on a particular point. And when he's serious, he talks in a slow but intentional voice modulation, right? So that is the difference it makes. That is how it distinguishes you from a average speaker. The next very important component, which a lot of speakers and communicators miss, is engaging with the audience, engaging with the people who are listening to you by asking questions, by giving examples, by telling stories, by telling anecdotes. These keep people engaged. If you just keep talking about your thoughts, your ideas, you sort of run the risk of making the people feel bored. So let's say you are telling them about a very intense topic, and suddenly you ask someone from the audience a question. So, John, what do you think about that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Suddenly, everyone is now again on an high alert because they could be the next one from whom you ask the question. So it's important that you keep the audience on their toes. You keep the audience connected to yourself. You keep giving examples. You keep adding some humor in your presentations or in your communication, and that grasps the attention of the reader or the listener. And last is taking feedback, right? It's always important to take feedback, encourage responses from the audience, clarify their doubts, seek their doubts, because that not just helps them understand your content better, but also helps you grow as a subject expert. So that was all about verbal communication, expressing through words, either written or spoken. But as we discussed in the initial couple of minutes of our presentation, that a lot of communication happens non-verbally, right? Now, what do we mean by non-verbal communication? Primarily, it's body language. There are multiple other things which we'll talk about, but the broader umbrella term is body language. The first thing which we talk about is posture. Now, when you are, let's say, entering an interview room, your posture conveys so much about your mental state. You might be slouching like this, or you might be pompous like this. But if you're sitting in a calm and composed posture, sitting upright or standing upright, that shows confidence. And open body language also shows confidence. You might have seen a lot of people when they are talking, they sit like this. This shows a closed body language. This shows that you are not open to communication. That shows that you are cold. It shows that you're not willing to engage. A body language like this, whereas an open body language like this shows that you are welcoming, shows that you want to engage, shows that you want to communicate effectively. So that is important. Your posture plays a very big role, be it you standing and delivering a presentation or you sitting in an interview room. Make sure that you are always sitting or standing upright. You're not slouching, you're not standing on one leg, you're not being finicky, you're not being shaky, you're not shaking your legs. All of those things show a lot about you without you even speaking a word. Your initial first impression is made in the first few seconds of when you meet a people, when you meet a person, and posture plays a big role, right? Next is eye contact. A lot of people struggle with making good eye contact, which sort of puts off the other person wrongly. They might feel that you're not interested in the conversation. They might feel that you are shy or nervous. They might feel that you are ignoring them. That could also be the case. So it's important that you maintain effective eye contact. Now, when I say eye contact, I don't want you to keep staring into their eyes and just creep them out. No, that's also not the case. What you can do is look at them for a few seconds, and then you can probably look here and there, then look at them for a few seconds, and then here and there. Just keep switching your gaze, but keep a regular eye contact. That shows that you are attentive, that shows that you are interested in the conversation, it shows that you're honest to the conversation, right? Next up is gestures. You're saying that I'm constantly using my hands, even though I'm sitting behind a screen and you can't really see my entire body, but you are able to see that I'm using these gestures to help you understand my words effectively. I could be talking like this and I could go on speaking like this and I could complete the entire lecture speaking like this, but you would get bored. You would get utterly bored if I keep on speaking like this and if I don't make any movement and you just start looking at my face and I'm looking at your face and both of us are looking at each other's face and we are getting bored at each other now. But when I keep on doing this, your brain sort of perceives it as some movement happening and it stays alert. It shows that you have emotion behind your words. It shows that you are effectively communicating your thoughts. And gestures have to be proper. Gestures cannot be too enthusiastic. If I keep on talking like this and doing antics like this, and that also looks odd and a little funny. But it has to be balanced, right? So you could have an open body language, use your hands, try not to use your feet, that would look a little gimmicky, but use your hands in a manner which shows that you mean your words, it shows that you support your words. Now let's say when you are talking about a list, 1 2 3 4, you could list it like this: point number one, point number two, point number three, point number four. When you're asking a question, you could gesture like this: so what do you guys think? Right? Don't point finger. What do you guys think? That looks really bad. That shows that you're singling out a person and you are being a little arrogant. Talk like this with a open-handed body language so that it shows that you are in control. Usually your hands have to be somewhere between your shoulder and your waist for effective communication, but you can vary it a little bit. Sometimes you can go up and down, but don't overdo it as well. Don't underdo it, don't overdo it. Strike a balance. Okay. And then comes facial expressions. Your facial expressions have to match your mood. If you are telling a very happy incident and you're not smiling, that shows that you're not really happy, you're just faking it. So if I'm, let's say, telling about a success but I am delivering it in a very sad and angry tone, I scored a lot of marks in my board exams, I topped my board exams, and I was the first person in my entire city, and there are now posters across the city, and I'm really happy I've made my parents proud. Doesn't look right, right? But on the other hand, you know what I did? I topped my board exams. Now posters are across the city, and my parents are so happy I can't even tell you. So that's what makes the difference between a dull communicator, a non-expressive communicator, and a expressive communicator, and that makes the world of a difference. Facial expressions. Make sure you're smiling when you are required to. Make sure that you're serious when you're required to. You don't have to smile when your boss is giving an important presentation. That would also make you look stupid. So make sure that your facial expressions match the message and the vibe of the room. And lastly, appearance. A lot of people neglect this, but appearance does play an important role. People judge you on how you look, people judge you on how you are dressed. So if you are attending a formal business meeting, make sure that you follow the dress code, make sure your tie is proper if there is a tie required, make sure clothes are well ironed, make sure that your shoes are not dirty, make sure that your laces are tied, make sure that you're not smelling bad, make sure that you have brushed your teeth, make sure that you are not having a bad breath, make sure that your hair are proper, make sure that your beard is proper if you keep it. So all of these things contribute to your appearance and send a signal to other people on how serious you are about this meeting and about yourself. So make sure that you put in those right efforts, right? Now, if you talk a type of verbal cues and non-verbal cues, especially non-verbal cues, you could structure them into multiple categories. If you talk about gestures and facial expressions, they form a part of your kinesics. Kinesics, as in the moving components of your non-verbal cues. Proxemics, on the other hand, talk about your use of space. So if it's a large stage and you're just standing and delivering a speech standing at a single place, that is not the best use of space. Maybe you can walk around a little. Maybe you can, engage with the audience by walking. And on the other hand, if you are, let's say, sitting in a interview in a chair, then you might want to be seated properly. You might not want to, get up and keep on moving like this. So make sure that you use your space effectively. Then, of course, there is haptics, how you express yourself through gestures of touch, like handshake. Handshake is an important component, which is a very important non-verbal cue. A loose handshake sends a very bad impression. So whenever you shake someone's hand, make it a firm handshake. Don't be too firm, especially with women. That could also be perceived as rude and cocky. But yeah, it has to be a firm handshake. Don't be a limping handshake person. No one likes that. And also ensure, this is a pro tip, ensure that when you shake someone's hand, your hands are not too cold. So what happens is, when we are in social gatherings and we have a cold drink in our hand or any other drink in our hand, we usually hold it in our right hand if you're a right-handed person. But if you hold it in the left hand, your right hand stays warm for handshakes. And a warm handshake shows that you're a warm person. A cold handshake shows that you're a cold person. So send the right message through your handshake as well. No need to go for fancy handshakes. Some people, shake hands like this and all of those things, and you don't need to, just grab someone's hands and don't let go. You're not a, president or a prime minister who is on a diplomatic mission. No, don't do that. Just a solid, firm, simple handshake, and that's it. That should be your goal. Next is chronemics. Chronemics is simply valuing the time of the other person, being punctual to a meeting, being punctual to a class, being punctual to an interview. All of those send a very important impression of you, that how serious you are, how professional you are. So never be late. And last is paralanguage. This again we have discussed: tone, pitch, and pauses, all of those things. And once you have had a control on your verbal as well as non-verbal cues, this slowly starts building your confidence, which is very important, because once you have confidence, you develop a trust in your abilities. You are more comfortable in expressing yourselves. It helps you speak up, it helps you take initiative, it helps you lead, it helps you set an example, it helps you stop judging yourself from failure or fear. It helps you identify your strengths, helps you work on your weaknesses, helps you prepare well, helps you in practicing in front of others and speaking in front of others. And how do you do that? You simply fake it till you make it. So you do positive self talk. You replace sentences where you say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't be on a stage, I can't speak in front of 1,000 people. Just say, I'll try. The worst what can happen, you will fail, right? But you would at least try, you would at least learn something. So replace that negative self-talk with positive self-talk, that I can do this, I'll try, I'll give my best. That is what it is. And accept feedback from people, from mentors who are there to teach you a lesson or two, and learn from your mistakes. Okay, I did this wrong, next time I'll improve on it. That's how you slowly build confidence in anything, be it speaking, be it communication, verbal or non-verbal, or any other thing in life. Now, the last component of this particular session and presentation is GDs, which is group discussions. Group discussions often happen in a college setup. They also happen when you go for your postgraduate college admissions. They also happen when you sometimes sit for job interviews. So, all in all, they form an important part of your career, and it's important that you know the basics of a group discussion. You know the do's and don'ts, you know how they happen, and how to go about them smoothly. So when you talk about group discussions, what are they? They are simply a structured discussion among a group of people, usually more than two people, who talk and discuss about a particular idea. They communicate their thoughts on a particular idea, and it is used to judge your communication skills, of course, but also your leadership skills and your teamwork. And lastly, your critical thinking skills. How does it test your leadership and teamwork skills? We see, we as in the interviewer sees, that how are you leading a conversation? How are you giving others a chance to express themselves? How are you picking the people who are not confident and giving them some morale boost? How are you not interrupting someone when they're expressing their thoughts? How are you thinking about a particular topic and structuring your thoughts? All of those things are tested and assessed during those group discussions. And it's important that you know these do's and don'ts. Let's look at the do's first. First is, of course, be well read and well aware of what's happening around in the world, current affairs. So, if, for an example, you go for a GD tomorrow and the panel asks you that okay, do a group discussion on the geopolitics of Iran and Israel, but you are clueless about geopolitics, you are not even following the news, you don't know what has happened, you don't know what's the cause, and what are you going to speak? So for you to have some context is always important. And if in the worst case scenario you find yourself in a position where you know absolutely nothing about the topic, then don't initiate the discussion. Don't speak anything gibberish. Wait for others to put some context on the topic, and then maybe you can build on what others have said after you have understood the topic. So that is something which you can remember, that if you don't know the topic well, wait for others to speak, don't rush into leading it. But if you are confident of the topic, let's say you just read it today and you know all the details, you have facts, you have figures, you have stats, you have arguments, you have counter arguments, then sure, initiate it confidently and sort of lead the conversation. Of course, be clear and concise in your sentences. Don't just keep on going and going, because this is a team activity. You also have to give other people the chance to express their opinion. So once you have expressed your thought, maybe you can ask another person that what are your thoughts on this, what do you think, do you agree, do you disagree, I would like to know your perspective as well. So those things show that you are a team player. You are not just trying to boss everyone around. So it's equally important to listen and then respond logically to other people's statements as well, and respecting others' opinions as well. Sometimes GDs get heated, and sometimes the topics can be controversial, the topics can be polarizing, where where you feel very strongly about a particular topic, and you sort of go towards disrespecting someone who has a contrarian view, who has a different view from you, and that might show very negatively as an impression of you. So don't do that. Just agree to disagree if you are not on the same page with someone, but respect everyone's opinions, even if you think that they're talking nonsense. And lastly, some don'ts are obviously don't interrupt or shout on someone. Don't try to dominate or be silent throughout. Don't make personal attacks, and don't just blatantly copy what others say. As Rahul said, de-dollarization should definitely happen. I also think the same. That does not add any value to the conversation, right? You need to add something new, some of your perspective, some of your thoughts, to contribute meaningfully to a conclusion. And that is how you do a group discussion. Now, to putting all of this in perspective, and just concluding this session, I would say don't look at communication as a tool to do better in interviews, a tool to do better in job profile. Communication is a life skill. Communication helps you in intrapersonal relationships. It helps you develop a better bond with your friends and family, with your loved ones, in your professional setup, of course. And a person who can communicate effectively would, in most of the cases, be ahead of the person who knows his or her skill really well but is a bad communicator. That is what you would see in practical day to day life. There might be a person who is very sharp in his or her skill. Let's say a person is a coder. Okay. A coder who is very sharp with his or her skill but does not know how to tell the world how good he is. Whereas on the other hand, there is an above average coder who is really well in how he expresses his thoughts, how he structures his opinions, how he showcases his work. That second person would definitely, not definitely, but in most of the cases, gain an advantage over the first person. So if you want to gain that edge in whatever pursuit of life you are, make sure that you take small efforts and start improving your communication skills. Start recording yourself, start reviewing your speaking style, continuously keep on improving. I particularly continuously keep on improving myself when I learn from various sources. You can learn from so many resources. We live in the age of internet. You can look at TED Talks, so many good speakers. You can look at documentaries. You can look at political speeches of famous politicians. There's so much and so many people to learn from. All you need is an open mind. All you need is some drive to learn and practice regularly. Come out of your comfort zone. And yeah, that's all that is to effective communication. And I hope you take something positive out of this session. And if you do drop a comment under this video, and I would really appreciate that if you do that, because that would help me understand that you got some value from this lesson. So, yeah, that's all from my side. My name is Govind Singh, and I hope you like this video. Do drop a like, share it with people you think would benefit from this, your friends, your family, your seniors, your juniors, everyone. And I'll see you in another one. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Signing off.